everyone, welcome to our first video that we're hoping to upload for you to make life a little easier, just some tidbits on different things that we can help you with. Today we're going to go over the difference between analysis and evaluation. Sometimes we think of them as the same thing, or that we don't really know exactly what the difference is. They are kind of tricky because they can be similar sometimes, but today we're going to go over the differences and some things to think about when we're analyzing versus when we are evaluating. This will be really relevant to you in different assignments in QRTA and in academia in general, right? Some things we're analyzing, some things we're evaluating. Even as teachers, we're doing the same thing. So what's the difference and how do we do it in general? So first of all, what is analysis? Analysis is deconstructing a piece of work, a concept, or idea. What do I mean by deconstructing? Well, if you think about construct, it means to build something up. Deconstruct means to kind of take something down. We're not literally taking anything down, but we are looking at the small pieces. We are taking the big idea and going really, really small into the different pieces that make up a different piece of work or concept or idea, right? It's really getting a thorough understanding of all the small moving parts of something and its implications. So what that means, right? What does that really mean? I'm talking about analysis in general right now. So we can be talking about analyzing a source. We can be talking about analyzing a teacher's method, a concept or theory, a student's work even, right? I'm not giving you the specifics on how to do each different type of analysis, but I want you to realize that the general concept of analysis can be applied to many different things, right? Can be applied to research papers, to behaviors, to different things that we are looking at, okay? Hopefully the specifics can come later in different videos, but right now my goal is for you to really understand the difference between analysis and evaluation. So we said that analysis is understanding all the small different parts of something and what that really means, right? This is not a summary. I cannot stress this enough to you. I think that this happens a lot where we think we're just summarizing something we saw if we're writing, or in our minds we're summarizing this. No, we are going much, much deeper than this. Let me give you an example. Let's say that we are seeing a teacher in her classroom and maybe observing. And we might see that we're going to analyze her method of grouping students. Maybe she's grouping them based on level, maybe she's grouping them based on personality or achievement, something like this. We could say, as a summary, our teacher that we observed grouped her students based on level. This is completely different than analyzing, where we say something along the lines of our teacher grouped her students based on level. Now, this happened because she did X, Y, and Z, and her goals were to do this, and we saw that the outcome was this, right? We're going very, very deep into the small different pieces of what we saw. We're not just doing a summary. We're analyzing every little piece so that we can really understand. Like I said, this is going beyond the surface. This is beyond just, okay, this is what happened. No, we're digging deeper. What are the small pieces? Why were they there? And what did they mean, right? We're being like little investigators, right? We're not making any evaluations yet or any judgments. We're just looking really, really hard and understanding the meaning. But another addition to analysis is making connections. Making connections is really important. In order to really analyze, we need to bring in different things that we've learned. Different, maybe things you've learned in class, different theories, different observations we've seen. How can we connect this one incident or this one thing, this paper, this theory, this behavior? How can we connect it to something else we know or have learned or have researched, right? The more we make connections, the better we understand something in the context of the world, right? So I want to give you a couple of questions that you can ask yourself when you are analyzing something. This is to help guide your thinking. Analysis is not answering all these questions, right? It's not just answering questions, of course not. But I want you to have these questions in the back of your mind when you analyze anything, because then you're on the right track for analysis and really understanding what it is that you're analyzing. What is the goal of this behavior or piece of work or method? If we understand the goal, we understand more about the actual piece, right? A summary might not even mention the goal because it's not explicitly stated. But we can understand maybe the teacher's goal for grouping students a certain way. When we ask ourselves this, it helps us understand the piece a little bit more. Who came up with it? Again, these are pieces of information, these questions, that are not obvious. Maybe the answer is not obvious. That's why we have to dig deep. We're investigators, remember? We're analyzing. We're looking really, really closely at something, trying to find little pieces of information from this one paper, this one incident, this one method. Who came up with it? Why do we need to know this? It helps us understand the biases a person might have, or a company, or where this person came from, where this creator came from. Why are they doing it a certain way, right? So knowing who came up with it helps us understand the lens in which the person is looking at or creating this piece of information. Who is the audience? Who is this intended for? It's going to look a lot different if it's intended for students or if it's intended for teachers, right? So understanding the audience, again, helps us understand a lot more about the piece. What are the implications? By implications, we mean bigger meanings, right? Bigger effects that it might have. So we have this behavior, we have this method, or we have this piece of paper. What does it mean? We can summarize it in our minds. That doesn't do much for us. What does it actually mean? What does this do? How does this affect students in the future? How does this affect students in the classroom right now? How does this affect us as readers, right? What is the context? We always need to know context of anything. We can't look at it outside of a context, right? To fully understand something, we really need to know the situation in which it was placed. Is this a K through 12 classroom we're talking about? Is this a certain level of students? We need to know the context in order to fully understand. What are the most important parts? So yes, we're understanding all the small pieces. Which parts of it are extremely important and which are less? Which aspects of this teaching method really affect or have big implications and which have smaller ones? Again, helping us to understand this piece fully. One of the most important questions I would ask is, what connections can I make? When we analyze something, we need to think, as I said before, about other situations that might be similar, or theories that are relevant, or research that we've seen. This helps us take this piece, this incident, this paper, whatever it is, and contextualize it in the bigger picture instead of just looking at it on its own. So then that brings us to our next question. What is evaluation? So we said that analysis is looking at the specifics, digging deep, not looking at the surface level. What are the implications? What are some things that might not be so obvious that will help us understand it better? A really thorough understanding, right? So what is evaluation? Evaluation is making a judgment based on criteria. So that's kind of hard to grasp at first. But a judgment, we think of judgment as like that's good or bad. No, I'm not talking about good or bad. We're talking about if something is useful or less useful, effective or not effective, right? We need to base this off of something, though. We can't just say this is effective. Okay, but why? How? How do we know it was effective? We need some criteria, is the word. Maybe that might look like a rubric if you're evaluating a student's presentation, right? You're basing it off of their pronunciation or grammar and certain levels and points, or a grade, right? But in in academia, it might look a little bit different, right? Our criteria could be research. What does research say if this is effective or not? Our criteria could be if the person met their goals or not, or if the paper effectively explained the topic, right? So we need some kind of criteria. We can't just make a judgment on our own and say this is good or not good. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, is this effective, not effective, useful, not useful, and how we know this with some kind of solid evidence that we know this, which we can call as our criteria. So, of course, here are some questions to ask yourself when you're evaluating to help you stay on track. Again, keep these in the back of your mind as you are evaluating anything, really. You can even evaluate things in your social life, right? You can analyze things in your social life. These are skills that you can apply across many fields, many different situations, many specific incidents, right? Again, we're focusing more on academia right now. So from what perspective is the source being presented? So in order for us to judge whether something is useful or not useful, we need to look at the perspective a little bit more. We might have done this in our analysis as well. Is it relevant? This is a great criteria. Relevance. This is our criteria, right? So let's pretend you're searching for sources on your paper. You need to evaluate your source for a paper that you're going to write on student-teacher relationships. You find a research paper on student-teacher relationships, but it's set for adult students, and you're focused on K through 12. It's no longer relevant, right? This can be used in many different situations. Is it relevant to what I'm looking for, to my context, right? Especially with sources, like videos, research articles, when was the information presented? We need to evaluate that, right? Like, if something is 25 years old, it may or may not still be relevant, depending on what new research has come out. So sometimes a really, really old piece of work is not going to be something that's useful for us now. So we've made a judgment on it after we've decided it's too old or not as useful. Not saying that's the case for everything, but it can be the case. In what context is this applicable? So here we go again with criteria. Applicable becomes criteria. What is applicable for those who might not know? Applicable means when something can be used well and effectively. So in what situation is this, for example, teaching method applicable? When can we use this grouping method? Of course, when we have a certain number of students or a certain age of students, right? It may not be applicable when we just have one student because you can't group them. This is a simple example. But again, what is the context that we can use these things in a way that's meaningful? We've made a judgment based on the criteria of applicability, right? Does it achieve its goals? Another great criteria. Is there, maybe the paper went in with the goal of explaining X, Y, and Z, but by the end you felt like, this paper didn't really help me understand X, Y, and Z. They must not have met their goals. That's our criteria. We never said, oh, it's good or bad. Why? Why do we think it's useful or not useful? Maybe our criteria is they didn't meet their goals, and you're always going to back that statement with something. So again, another criteria we can look at, is it useful or not useful? But don't forget, this isn't our opinion. We need something to back that up, whether that's research, whether that's some kind of evidence, time frame, effectiveness in the classroom. If we saw that students didn't benefit at all, then that's our criteria. Did the students benefit, right? So just to finish and close off, we need to know the difference between analysis and evaluation. We said analysis is thoroughly understanding something beyond the surface level and making those connections and understanding implications. Evaluation is something we can do after analysis, and we can say, is this useful? Is it not useful? We make a judgment based on some criteria, and this is beyond our opinion. This is based on evidence or some kind of criteria that we need to show that this is actually useful or actually effective. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful.